Now, there are effectively three reasons why you would want to locum as a GP. Now, the first one is variety, the second one is flexibility, and the third one is money. Did someone say money? Now, everyone says that being a locum is way more money, and we will go into that in a little more detail later on. And so if you've been working in the same place for the last 5 or 10 years, and you're starting to feel a little bit burnt out, now locuming might actually be up your alley. This video isn't saying that locuming is better than having a regular GP job, because when I first qualified, I did loads of locuming. But then actually when I found a practice that I really liked, I feel like I really grew as a person and as a doctor in that one practice. And so whether or not you want to locum will probably depend on your personal circumstances. Number one is the variety. And variety is effectively one of those reasons why we go into GP in the first place. But what can happen if you're in the same place for quite a few years is that you will start losing on that variety. You will have your regular patients. Those patients might have developed a bit of a complex medical history, and you're starting to lose a little bit on that acute quick stuff that kind of breaks up the day for you. And so when I attended the RACGP Early GP conference, and I did a bit of a review video, and I'll leave the link in the description below, one of the speakers said that the optimum time to be in one practice is actually 2 years. And 2 years feels pretty short to me, but he effectively said that that is a time where you're really starting to get to know your patients, but things are getting too complicated or too complex. And I actually texted in a question at the conference to ask whether we should be moving practices every 2 years, and everyone started laughing, but I was actually serious. Now, what can happen is that if we're in a practice for a little bit too long, we can start becoming de-skilled in certain areas because effectively patients will self-select depending on what the setup is in the practice. So if you have someone who's really great at skin, well, people will stop coming to you with their skin complaints. If you have someone who's really great at women's health, again, same thing. You won't do any antenatal care or any menopause care, which is something that can be really rewarding. And especially when a patient tells you, like they once told me, she was surprised that a male GP knew so much about the menopause. Now, another benefit in being a locum is because you're getting a lot of the acute, a lot of the bread and butter stuff, you can focus on getting really quick at those. And so when I was working at a walk-in center, you pretty much had about 5-6 minutes per patient. So the patient would sit down, you'd introduce yourself, and whilst they were giving you their presenting complaint, you were already reaching out with your thermometer and your SATS probe to check their basic observations. And within 3 minutes, you pretty much knew what you were dealing with, and that's when you started closing the consultation. Now, I'm not saying that's good, and it probably wasn't too great when it comes to delivering great quality care, where I feel personally that you kind of do need to spend a little more time getting to know your patient. But again, sometimes if it is just a simple cough or cold or a simple UTI, you don't need to spend 20 minutes on it. Now, the second reason why being a locum is really great is you get the ultimate flexibility. I mean, GP is pretty flexible already. It's really great if you want to work, for instance, only weekends or only evenings, or you want to work within the school hours. There's a lot of flexibility from that point of view. But if you are a locum, you can literally do whatever you want. You can take 6 months off if you want, and no one's gonna care. If you're a regular GP and you suddenly decide that you want to take 3 to 6 months off, and you've already kind of built up a patient base that kind of relies on you, well, it will be really difficult to leave that patient base for 3 to 6 months. And I kind of see that when I speak to doctors who are really established in their practices. They really have this sense of commitment to their patients, especially if they're partners or if they're owners. I met a partner who refused to take any time off, and he just worked straight for about 5 years. Although that probably wouldn't work for me, and I'd probably start burning out very quickly. Because he was the practice owner, he had a really strong sense of effectively ownership and commitment to his patients. And so if you're a locum, you can come and go. You don't have to worry about that. Now, another side of that flexibility is that you can work wherever you want. So you're not limited to just one practice. One thing that I'm doing at the moment is I'm actually locuming. So I'm not recording from my home, I'm recording from a hotel room in Bustleton. I normally work in Perth, but the company that I work for owns a practice down in Bustleton, and they were really struggling for GPs. So they effectively asked me if I wanted to come down to Bustleton, stay here for a week, do some surfing and some wine tasting, obviously, and then work in between those times. I mean, probably the other way around, but you know what I mean. So one of the other benefits of locuming is that you can explore different areas, both before and after work or on your days off. And when we're talking about that flexibility of location, the variety will also trickle through into that flexibility. Because if you're working in different places, people will have different backgrounds, different socioeconomic situations, and that combines variety with flexibility. Finally, we're going to talk about money. And I've worked both as a GP in the UK and as a GP in Australia, where I currently am working. When I was working in the UK, I created a video with a friend who's also a YouTuber, and he's a locum GP and I was a salary GP at that point. And we compared salaries because I have this theory that as a locum GP in the UK, you actually aren't making more money than as a salary GP, like the job that I had. And I break things down for you, and if you want to have a look at that video, have a look at the link in the description below. What I've realized about working as a GP in Australia is that sometimes if you do a locum shift in more of a regional area, you actually might be making less money than you would in your private billing metro practice. And for me, that just seems so backwards. Wouldn't you want to financially incentivize doctors and GPs to work in more rural areas or regional areas rather than being being crowded in the busy metro areas. Now I have personal experience from this because I work in Perth in Fremantle, and it's a busy practice, it's a metro practice, and it's a private billing practice. And I did a locum shift in Albany for a week, and the practice that I worked in, the people weren't very affluent, and so a lot of it was effectively bulk billing. And when you're a locum GP, you're not really supposed to be doing the regular GP stuff that attract a lot of Medicare benefits, like GP management plans or health assessments or team care arrangements. And then reviewing those management plans, again, that really shouldn't be you as a locum, it should be the regular GP. And so effectively what I noticed is that when I went down to Albany and I was working there, I almost made half of what I was making in Perth, which just seemed so backwards to me. And so later on, what I realized is that when you are negotiating locum shifts, you will want to have a chat about some kind of minimum income guarantee because you don't have access to those big numbers. Things might be changing because there is this triple incentive now that's come through that effectively means that if you're bulk billing pensioners, pension card holders, or concession card holders, then depending on how outside of a metro area you are, you will be getting an extra bonus on top of that. So I think that will probably start making things a bit more even. Now, another fringe benefit of locuming is that this is effectively a business trip. So my petrol, my food, my sustenance is all tax deductible. So that might make a little bit of a difference here. Now, are you a locum GP? And if you are a locum GP, tell me what are the 3 main reasons that you are locuming and why you find it much better than having a regular job, for instance. In summary, even though I like doing the odd locum shift here and there, I do personally prefer to have a regular place of work. And the reason why I prefer that is because I do like the continuity of care. I do like getting to know people, your staff, your other doctors, a bit of a social network behind you. And I find that is one of the benefits of having a regular job. Now, if you feel that you do want me to make a video about the 3 reasons why you would want to have a regular job in a GP practice, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll see what I can do for you. Otherwise, good luck and happy locuming.